Hello, it's nice to have you all here, and my name is Dmitry Chaplinsky, and I'm today to tell you a story about not only about the projects we've done with White Collar 100 and NGO, but it's also a story about the passion, about the commitment, about volunteering, and about how the IT technologies, with a little bit of magic, can bring a change. I hope you will find it inspiring and, or at very least, enjoy it. And let me start clean and simple with very basic thing. What is the White Collar 100 and how it appeared? And it all started 2 years ago. Yeah, slightly more than 2 years ago. Right after the last days of Maidan, when Mr. Yanukovych, our former president, has left the building. And not only he left in luxury but very bad styled apartments after him, and a farm and a zoo and a lot of stuff, but also piles of documents. Very interesting documents, because Mr. Yanukovych was corrupted crack, and in his documents you would expect any kind of corruption schemes and related persons, stuff like that. But unfortunately, when we are saying documents, it's not the documents you would expect. It's not like a neatly stuffed room with folders of papers. No, not at all. Those documents that were found by journalists and activists, they've been soggy, they've been half burned or torn by hands or run through the shredder. And in just few days, the pile of documents got bigger because another runaway, Mr. Sergei Kurchenko, youngest Ukrainian oligarch and billionaire, actually, left behind him dozens, maybe 40 trash bags full of shredded documents. And on the right side, you can see the volunteers trying to make some sense out of those documents. What can be done with documents of that kind? Apparently, if the documents are just torn, you can reconstruct them. You just need plenty of horizontal space, some dedicated volunteers, and you can put it back together. If you have documents which were cut into strips, you can do it as well. You will need a pair of tweezers. You will need some free time. It will hurt as hell your back. It will hurt your eyes. You will end up with a flat butt, but it's doable. And this is exactly how the White Collar 100 movement has begun. So it was a bunch of dedicated volunteers. I don't even know the names of all of them. I don't even know the names, who actually reconstructed some of those documents and made a bunch of investigative articles on that, and they were quite successful with these easy documents. But what to do with shredded documents? Documents like this. So they've got stuck. And it was already an end of the spring of 2014, and in May I left by then quite surreal Lugansk and became an internally displaced person. And if you haven't been an internally displaced person, you might understand that you are depressed, you are glued to the news feeds, and you have like plenty of free time. So I decided to try to help to find something that can distract me from all this stuff, from constantly refreshing the news feed in your browser, looking for the news from your own city. And this is how I met the White Collar 100 movement. And I've said, okay, Python has some capabilities in computer vision. Can we make a change? What can we do with these documents? Apparently, these documents which are shredded, they also can be reconstructed. FBI does that. And if you have just a couple of sheets shredded, you can reconstruct them. And the basic idea is the idea of the jigsaw puzzle. When you start with puzzle big enough, you start with some kind of crystallization seeds, like the borders or the corners or fragments of face. For the documents, it's roughly the same. You will start with the header of the document, or maybe as a fragment of stamp, and then you find the similar threads and put it together and try to make a picture out of it, and then on top of that you will end up with a complete document. So we decided to mimic this idea, and this is how the unshred product has begun. So first of all, I've made Python find the shreds on the scanned colored sheets and squeeze some information out of them, information about geometry, about palette, and some kind of mid-level features, like does that shred has pen marks, or maybe it's a part of the picture, maybe it has some color information on it, not only the typed information. Then we decided that it's not enough, we need to squeeze more, and we come up with crowdsourcing website. We've tried to move our volunteers from the dusty room full of papers to the, well, maybe not so dusty rooms with their computer, where they can log in with their Facebook accounts. They all have Facebook accounts for some reason. And we've loaded a lot of data into this system, a lot of ground truth data, just to start with something. And we've asked it, can you identify these features on these small shreds? Like maybe it's a part of the table, maybe it's a part of the header, what kind of font it's used, how badly it's printed, or maybe does it use some kind of weird paper? And it's also the case. What it's for, because when you have just one page, it's relatively easy. When you have a trash bag with hundreds of pages, or maybe thousands of pages, you are pretty much screwed. You need to narrow down somehow the search space. And for that, you need to know something about these little threads. And to search and to find similar ones, you need to squeeze as much information from each one, respectively. And the third stage of the process was like this. Given all this information, we can build an UI where another volunteer can log in and can start with something and then ask the system for the similar threads, candidates, and then try to fit it, and then confirms that, okay, this seems like a fit. Now find me another candidates and stuff like that. And it's been started, but unfortunately never finished. And this is, especially for me, it's quite a sad part. But the sad truth is that even those documents that I mentioned at the beginning that were reconstructed, they didn't lead to the criminal cases or prosecutions. Nobody ended up in the jail. And over the time, the value of the information hidden in these trash bags, it diminished greatly. And also, we've got like quite a lot of new ideas when implementing which we can like shape a future, not dig in the past. And also, the project like this, it's very interesting, but you never know if you will be successful by the end. It's not like build the car out of the specs. It's like invent something new, try something new, and then you might find it successful or not. So we've put it on a long pause, unfortunately, because it was quite an interesting thing, but we've learned a lot. And then we started with another project, and it's all about assets declaration of Ukrainian officials. In Ukraine, apparently, Ukrainian officials are obliged to fill the paper form with their assets and incomes over the past year, and then it should be published in the electronic form. And the problem here is that, it's in the electronic form part of the sentence. Here is how common Ukrainian official thinks the electronic form should look like. I will make it slightly bigger, maybe it will help. And not to say that many of them actually neglected to publish that. So this information was buried in the paper format, in some shelves, in some, I don't know, HR departments somewhere. And then illustration process uncovered some of those declarations, because if you need to pass the illustration process, you need to pass a declaration. So thousands of them has been digitized, and instead of this, we've got like 3,000 PDF files, even not named. It's like MD5 of something .pdf. You don't know what's inside. And some friends of us asked, okay, given these files, can you do something about this data? And we decided, okay, let's give it a try. Let's start clean and simple. We've created a Google form, a huge Google form, like 400 of questions to resemble this paper form. And I wrote a small script which used Amazon SES to send in emails. We've subscribed some volunteers. We've sent out them some tasks. And in just 2 days, right before the Orthodox Christmas, it's between the New Year and Orthodox Christmas, first week of the year, we've got our results back, like in no time. And each declaration was digitized by at least 2 or 3 volunteers, just to make sure that nobody is trying to trick us or fool us. And then we've looked at the spreadsheet, and, well, spreadsheet is the wrong word, because Google spreadsheet can't work with the spreadsheet that big. So it was more like CSV file with 400 columns and 9,000 rows. And we quickly understand that we can't do anything with this. It's too messy. Messy, it's what you expect with the input data slightly better than that. And when you ask some different human beings to decipher it, so it all kind of small discrepancies here and there. So we decided that we need some help, and we found the Olga, an analyst, and she said, okay, give me this data and do not disturb me for 2 months. We said, okay, let's think how we can improve the process. And we said, okay, Google Form is not the solution we need something better. So we returned to the project we've done before to digitize the shreds. We ripped off, literally, a code for the crowdsourcing part, and we made our own framework out of it, like our own Django or mechanical Turk, if some of you know what it's all about. So it just allows you to register with your favorite social network and then log in and then maintain the leaderboard and send you new tasks, stuff like that, just very basic. And we've created a plugin for them. The very first plugin was a plugin to digitize the declaration. And one friend of mine took the great job. He just took this paper form and made an HTML rendition out of it, but we've tried to use all the knowledge we've gained during the previous phase. So we've added hints and validations and cross-validations and autocomplete and drop-downs. We even constructed the dictionaries for the autocomplete for the cars or boats, so you don't need to remember how to write Hyundai, just start typing it, just to reduce these discrepancies between versions. And in the parallel, we started to think, okay, how we can present this data, given that we digitized them. So we started a new project, declarations.com.ua, which will display the digitized version of the declaration. And on the April 1st of 2015, we've launched it together and uploaded the first part of the digitized data. And now it's like open data. It has an API, anyone can use it. And immediately this paid off, because some people just downloaded all the data and created analytics out of it. So like this. And they were kind enough to share the results with us. And then our partners made a simple BI out of them. Finally, they made a game where you can guess the annual income of the state official given his cars and assets. And it's quite fun to play, because it looks like some of them cannot even afford to fuel their cars, not to mention to hit their building. And just yesterday, these guys published an big analytics on outliers about judges and prosecutors and how they make their living. No, very interesting article. Didn't read it completely yet, but finally we managed to create kind of workflow, not to just do it once, but to do it steadily. And in past year we've digitized 20,000 of declarations and published them. And we are searching for them. We are trying to obtain them using requests for public information. We're trying to pre-process the file, uploading them into this framework we've written. then edit the results and publish the results and stuff like that. And this is the technology stack. In case someone interested, the only interesting part is that web part is actually using Elasticsearch as the main data source. So it has Postgres, but more for like CMS capacities, and all the data is taken from the Elastic. And then, in parallel with that, we started another project, which is called PEP. And PEP is not the PEP you are used to. It's an acronym for the politically exposed persons, the persons who are dealing with politics. And this is word from the financial sector, from the financial monitoring, because politics and their close associates, their relatives and even friends, they should be treated in a different way when it's about money. If you are a politically exposed person, you have different rules to check your transactions in bank. It's harder to you to get a loan, to start a business, stuff like that. The only question is how bank will know that someone of their customers are actually a politician, probably from another country. Of course, bank can ask, and they are actually doing that. But you know, the honesty and politicians, well, honesty is not the virtue of politicians, especially of Ukrainian politicians. But there are demand for this data. And of course, if there is demand and there are some banks behind it who can pay, there are some companies, there are some propositions to close this demand. Sorry. And indeed, there are a few international databases who, amongst the other data, provide the information if the person is PEP or not. Of course, they are not free, and it's incomplete. You will hardly find some Ukrainian officials in there. So our friends from another prominent Ukrainian NGO, called the Anti-Corruption Action Center, decided to start their own project about Ukrainian politicians. And it's free, and it's open, and it's nationwide. So this is how the project was born. And they've started to collect this information, sending the request for public information, and then they backed it, they collaborated with some of normal MPs, and started sending requests for MPs, and it's hard to ignore this one. Then they started to digitize them, because of course it's in the paper form, into the Google spreadsheet, enormous one. And I've written a website on top of that which takes the data from the Google spreadsheet. And Google spreadsheet is quite awesome because everyone knows how to use it. It allows to do collaborative editing, and it's quite easy to hook up it from the Python and get all the data you need. And then we've tried to answer the one simple question. If the person given its name in every possible spelling, if it's a PEP or not, and if it's a PEP, what can confirm that? Is there a document or maybe some media? And also on top of that, we've added plenty of information about the about the profiles. I mean, the mention from media, the card decisions and sanctions lists from Euro Commission or USA, it's stuff like that. We also translated everything to English, so even guys from Cyprus can use it. And one interesting problem that arose here, this is not complete list of all possible spellings of just the name of one person, because in Cyrillic tradition, we are using different alphabet. And of course, it's Ukraine. Ukraine is more or less bilingual, so we're using Ukrainian and Russian. And some names can be spelled differently. And then we are using these nifty romanization tables, which says how to translate from Cyrillic to the Latin. And apparently, and I know it because I implemented it, at least 19 different transliteration tables to convert from Cyrillic to Latin. And I know like 5 or 6 versions of my own name, spell it in the different ways. So we tried to cover that all, we've tried to generate all possible ways of the name spellings. It was quite interesting task. And now we've feed it into the Elasticsearch. So no matter how you spell it, you will find it. And no way for the Cyprus bank worker to do it like, OK, there are mistype in one character. Of course, it's a completely different person. Let's withdraw this money or something like that. Again, technology stack, pretty same stuff. Jenga model translations, nifty small module to do the multilingual sites if you need it. Third project, and I'm just talking about the milestones. There are a lot more interesting projects. That was a funny and small one, Minions, or Pasipaki in Ukrainian. And this is a project about the assistance of the parliament members. Why it's so important? Because I don't know if the pointer will work. This is the number of assistants serving the MPs in Ukraine over the last 12 years. It's more like 73,000 of them. And why it's important? Because A, this data was not open before, and because it's huge, and because this connection between one guy and another guy is usually missing. Sometimes it's a missing link in some investigative journalism. When you have one guy from parliament, one guy from business, they're doing some tricky, shady things, but you can connect them. And then you check the registry of assistants, and you find out that one of them was serving another back in the years, so they are connected, they know each other. And it works. And we've tried to collect all the data, message them, and try to rebuild all the passes between different convocations. Because I think that some of assistants, someone just, I don't know how to translate it in English, they've been won in poker game or something like that, because some of them like changed 5 or 7 MPs over the course of the years. It been used in different investigative journalism articles, and it also causes the proper butthurt, especially because of the name. And it was so funny to watch when member of parliaments and their assistants was complaining about the name. Was such a rewarding moment. Okay, few more projects, smaller one, just not to overcome the time budget. We've also created a project on top of the state registry of immovable property. We just gain an access to it, and we've gotten information about the owners of elite real estate, like apartments, $2 million or $20 million, who own them. And we've managed to not only uncover this information, but also put it on map, connect it with each other, so you know you can answer who is the neighbor of whom and how they connected, stuff like that. And we finally managed to improve the state registry to make it work like expected, not like it was when we started. A short glimpse on the completely different beast and Ukrainian natural language processing, because all you know what is the NLP, right? When you stuff some unstructured text into the program and it extracts some structure information from it. Unfortunately, despite the vast majority of state-of-art algorithms available on market, you still need some data to train them. And it's simply when you speak English, because this data is already on market. But what if it's Ukrainian and you need the stuff called corpus, and you need some support, and you need some dictionaries? And we've started to make a change here as well. First of all, we've added the support of Ukrainian language to the PyMorphi 2. It's quite a good library on morphological analysis on Russian language. We've added the support for Ukrainian as well. We've created another plugin for the Vulik, for our framework, a crowdsourcing framework, to create a corpus of Ukrainian language and to tag it with post-text, part of speech text. I'm not stopping right there, just mentioning it, not going into great details. We've created another plugin to tag the text for the named entities, like persons or locations. So now, with this information tagged manually, we can train software to do it automatically. And of course, we will be open sourcing the results. And recently, we've got the first batch processed. Finally, we've added the support of Ukrainian language into the Elasticsearch to add the full text search capabilities to the Elasticsearch in Ukrainian. And then, oh no, wait. It's a tiny list of the people who was helping us in these projects. And it's just, the slide is not big enough for this one. It's volunteers who helped us with digitization of declarations and stuff like that. So you might ask a question, why we are doing that? Why we are collecting all this information? Why we're digitizing this information and this all information about persons and entities, legal entities, and about connections? And we've got quite a lot of information, believe me. We are trying to build something new out of this information, to squeeze even more. And to do it, we started with a new project called Name. No, it's working name. It's not final name, but it's names with capital S, because it's a project about name. Remember the slide with all these spellings of the same name? We started to collect the information about the translations of the names, typos, most common typos, most frequently used names, last names, and stuff like that. We've applied all possible inflections, because in Russian and Ukrainian traditions in Russian and Ukrainian language, there are such things as inflection when the word is changing their second part, given the different position in the sentence. We've collected quite a lot of information and stuffed into the huge graph databases, like 2.5 million nodes and 5 million relationships. What for? Because now we know every possible spelling of every possible name and last name, and also patronymics. Do you know what this patronymics is? It's okay, my full name is Dmitry Alexandrovich Chaplinsky, which states that I am Dmitry, son of Alexander. So my name contains mention of my father. And of course, if you have two persons who share the same last name and the same patronymic, you might say, okay, these two are brother and sister, for example. So this is important. Or this might be a father and a son. So what for? Because we have different data sets of people in different languages. Think data set of Panama Papers. And think data set like our PEP persons or our declarations or stuff like that. How can we match them together? With this graph database, we can do that. We can do that on a great speed. We can match lists against lists against each other. So this is the first use. And the second use, we also can generate all possible spellings and inflections and stuff like that to create a better full text search. So no matter on which language you are searching, you may make a typo, but it will find you a proper person. And we also can do it for the naive name identity recognition, because we know that, okay, this chunk of the text is a name, and this chunk of the text is a last name, so probably it's a person, and it will work in every possible language. So we will be able to monitor media or social media for the mentions of politics, and not only in Ukraine, but everywhere in the world. So this is basically it. It's all I have for today. I think in just half of a year, I will have even more. So, yeah, give me a second. I will try to make a punchline out of this talk. We've collected all the data. We're now learning how to link them together, and we will try to build a most advanced analytic system to show the connections and to help people to explore these connections and to give the whole new dimension of the data analysis for the investigative journalists, activists, and whoever is interested in it. And that's it, my friends. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Dmitry. Excellent talk and an interesting use of Python, I would say, and more technology. So thank you very much for your talk.
Thank you.
I'd say that questions